Today's episode is brought to you by ECC Frames. After 40 years in the framing business, ECC Frames has gotten into the custom business to market their services to all geeks. Framing comic books, trading cards, movie posters, record albums, gaming cartridges, action figures, and even models with quality and durability. Whether you're talking about frames or cubes, they use fine, durable Italian wood in their framing. UV-resilient acrylic and acid-free black mat board around the collectible. They also have different colors in frames and mat boards and can work with you to customize the look of your frame or cube to make an artful presentation you'll be proud to present in your geek cave. ECC did a great job for me preserving my original Spider-Man comic strips. I've talked about it before, written by Stan Lee, drawn by Larry Lieber. They can do it for you at very reasonable rates. Think about it. You've probably spent hundreds or even thousands of dollars on a toy, a trading card, a comic book, or some vintage collectible. Don't you want to present and protect it from damaging sunlight and wear? Go to ECCFrames.com, see their work online, contact them about making a customized frame or cube for your collectible. Use the promo code WordBalloon for an additional savings on your order. Again, that's ECCFrames.com with the promo code WordBalloon. And now, on to the show. Welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Man, we got a great one for you today. Brad Meltzer is back. I Am Jim Henson came out about a month or so ago. Wonderful book. Of course, as always, drawn by Chris Eliopoulus. It's another great kid biography in the Meltzer Eliopoulus library. And what a great subject. Jim Henson, adored by millions. I think, right up there with Walt Disney is in terms of being a beloved creator of such a big body of characters and shows. And we talk about them all. Sesame Street, The Muppets Show, our favorite Muppets. The real genius in terms of the way Henson figured out how to make puppets. And it's a really fun conversation. The book is great. It's great to read to your kids or have your kids read on their own. But also as an adult, you'll probably get a kick out of it, learning a lot about the history of Jim Henson, his inspirations, and how he shared his genius with the world. I really enjoyed this conversation. I always do with Brad. We have fun. I always feel like Brad gets to relax when he talks to me, and we just get to geek around and talk about some of our favorite stuff. And the guy has his hands in television and comics and novels and kids books, so we get to cover a lot of subjects. Brad Meltzer on today's Word Balloon. I'm glad you could join us today. It's brought to you by ECC Frames at ECC.com. I talked about that at the beginning of the show, but also brought to you by In Stock Trades at InStockTrades.com, where you can get some great savings this week on things like Astro City Honor Guard, great trade paperback from Kurt Busiek, and Jesus Marino doing the art chores on Honor Guard, as opposed to usually Brent Anderson, but a fantastic book. It's 42% off, just $11.59. One of the great series from the 90s that's still chugging along, Astro City. Power Man and Iron Fist, trade paperback, Volume 2, Civil War. This is David Walker and Flaviano Amintaro. And Sanford's doing covers, Sanford Green, who we love. A great book and a great price again, 42% off, $9.85. You can get Star Wars Legends, the Epic Collection. John Jackson Miller doing the writing. Lots of great artists in this collection. This is an Old Republic Epic Collection. It looks like they're reprinting some of the Dark Horse material now at Marvel. Why not? That was such a great run at Dark Horse. Enjoy it again at a great savings, $23.19 for that collection. The first Wacky Race Land trade paperback. I'm surprised at how much I like this book. I love the original cartoon. I like this modern spin on Wacky Races. This collects the 6-issue miniseries. It's 42% off, $9.85. Just the tip of the iceberg of the savings you'll find at InStockTrades.com. They also have a damaged book sale, which I remember I would go to their warehouse in Fort Wayne and take advantage of that. You are going to get ridiculous prices on books that have dings and dents and scratches, maybe crushed corners. And if you just really, really want the book at an amazing price. In-stock trades will help you out. And you'll be able to purchase a lot because don't forget, if your order reaches $50, then you reach that free shipping threshold. Take advantage of it now. Go to instocktrades.com. All right, let's pick up our conversation with Brad Meltzer. Hey, thanks for your patience. I know it's been 2 weeks since my last episode. I had so many technical difficulties in the middle of a freelance project deadline that I cannot wait to tell you about more as it reaches publication. But some fun opportunities have come up in the last couple of months, and I was able to take advantage of them. So thank you for your patience, and thank you, League of Word Balloon listeners, who continue to support me via Patreon. More new people each month with words of encouragement as I seek full-time employment again in radio, and I thank you for your help in keeping the lights on here at wordballoon.com. If you have any interest in subscribing to the show, if you think Word Balloon is great and worth the price of a comic book a month, can you spare $4, $5 a month, even $1, whatever you can spare. Go to wordballoon.com, click on the Patreon ad. It will take you to my Patreon page. And I will say now, as always, thank you, Word Balloon, League of Word Balloon listeners, for your support. Also, it's Try a Pod Month in March. Did you know about that? If you've got a friend, I know all of us who do podcasting, this month in March, we've been encouraged to let our listeners know that they can help expand the audience by just telling a friend who's never listened to podcasting before, hey, you like podcasts, so share that information with a friend. If it's Word Balloon, that's fantastic. But, if you've got a friend that likes stories about sports, stories about old movies, that podcasting has a podcast for pretty much every interest. Binge-watching television, music podcasts, so many great things. Music to jog or exercise by. Again, wonderful podcasts are out there, and if you would think about all of us and share that information with a friend and send them a link to a podcast they know they'll like. I was enjoying Gilbert Gottfried's show today with Jamie Farr. Hey! It was fantastic. A lot of Hollywood names that, my usual Word Balloon guests, like old Hollywood, be like, oh, I never heard of that guy before. So, but I knew it, and it was a good time. So share a pod this month with your friends. We're going to be doing that throughout the rest of March. And I'll have more information for you at the end of the episode. But now I've wasted enough time. Let's get to our conversation with Brad Meltzer about the great Jim Henson and a lot more. Brad Meltzer, back on Word Balloon. Brad Meltzer, welcome back to Word Balloon. As always, a pleasure to have you back, dude.
Love being here. You know that.
Congrats on I Am Jim Henson. Perfect subject. The likelihood is that some of these kids have already had their first taste of Muppets, and what a better way to teach than to tell them, the man behind what they love.
The funny part is now that the book's been out a little bit, I get to see reactions to kids, and I'm not prepared for this one, but the number one reaction, beside like how he actually made Kermit the Frog, but is kids are clearly obsessed with beards.
Interesting.
My nephew is like, where's Jim Henson? I want to see his beard. As if it's like some kind of like cover-up thing. But he's totally obsessed with his beard. And so we found, he saw a picture without the beard once, which I can't even think of one, but he's like, where's his beard? Maybe when he was a kid. And the kid in the book, they show him when he's a kid in the back, and he's like, where's his beard then? I just love that, we can spend 2 years of our lives killing ourselves to put this book out. And, children are just obsessed with the beard.
This is a fun subject for Chris as well, because now we get the Eliopoulus take on the Muppets. So how was that for Chris, talking to him about, visually?
The truth is like, I'm going to say this, and then Chris will argue with me when he hears this, but I actually think this was a harder book for him because he's usually spending his time doing the Eliopoulus version of some historical figures. So we can do an adorable Abraham Lincoln. Here's Rosa Parks. Here's Dr. King. And everyone's like, oh, he's going to do the cutest version of the Muppets. And when he first did his first draft of it, he drew it was almost like tracing because he wants to be so painstakingly perfect. He had almost it was almost like he did a photorealistic version of a Muppet. And I had to write him and say, listen, man, the reason that everyone loves these books is not me. It's because they love your art, and that's what draws the kids in. So, like, don't be doing their Kermit. Do your Kermit. Do your Ernie and Bert. Do your Sesame Street. And it took like a while for him to kind of, in fact, even Henson's family, when he did his first version of the cover, was like, that looks like a photorealistic version of Kermit. Even they wanted like the Chris version of Kermit, which I think is just hard because you're doing a caricature of a caricature.
Sure. Yeah. No, well, he succeeded. And I mean, God, there are so many great, pictures of just, multitudes of the Muppets, whether it's the variety show or Sesame Street, or great picture at the end of the book, too, with all the Muppets just kind of standing around and everything. I really love that. And I also love the secret of the Muppets, which I never understood, and that is the way that Henson constructed their eyes. Talk about that.
Yeah, no, this was, I learned this one when I met Jim Henson's daughter. And, the one thing they had this show that was on a number of years ago, and it was called Celebrity Bucket List. And their definition of the word celebrity is clearly a pretty low one, because they had me come on the show, and they said, we'll give you whatever you want to do on your bucket list. You can do anything. And they were like, you want to jump out of a plane? I'm like, I don't care about jumping out of a plane. They're like, you want to be in a Broadway show? I'm like, I don't care about being on a Broadway show. They're like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I only want to do one thing. There's only one thing. I said, I want to take my kids to Sesame Street. And they were like, we'll never be able to pull that off. I'm like, then I don't want to be on the show. And it's amazing, as always a lesson in Hollywood, what you can get if you just say no and walk away. And like a month later, my phone rang. I didn't care. I didn't think much of it. And they said, you're not going to believe this. We're going to get you to Sesame Street. And so we got to go to Sesame Street. I took my family there, and they let us make our own Muppets and run our own Muppets. And they had the guy who does, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name, but who does Telemonster, do like an instructional thing for my kids. Okay. And he taught us that the most important thing to do is focus, and that every Muppet, the reason it works is that, it has to have what they called focus. And he said that the trick was also, it's not just in the performer, but even Henson design is he learned early on. And if you think of any other puppet you've ever seen, they have two eyes and a nose and a mouth. And what Jim Henson realized is if you just have the eyes staring straight ahead, they look vacant. But if you cross their eyes just a tiny bit, just a little bit, if you cross their eyes, then they focus on you. So if you really look, if you want to really ruin the Muppets for yourself forever, look at the Muppets, and you'll see they're all a tiny, tiny, tiny bit cockeyed, and it gives them focus. And I'm like, Jim Henson is just a mad scientist genius to come up with that.
Absolutely. My God, that and the movement of the hand where the head is, and I mean, all people have to do is either look at your book or watch some Muppet video, and, they can look confused, they can look angry, and it's the same eyes, and it's not like they've got any sort of movement that they can manipulate eyebrows or anything like that. Especially the basic Muppets of Sesame Street and the Muppet Show and everything, and you get all these different emotional reactions from their face because of the cockeyed eyes, and also the way you can move their
and you
head.
Also see that performer, right? The performance. I mean, there's for those who watch Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, which I will go on the record and say is I think my favorite Muppet project of all time, and I totally snuck it in there. I had it, if you look in the back of the book, there's always Chris always puts me as a cameo somewhere so kids can find me. I'm like the bald Where's Waldo. But he put me in front of the Emmett Otter Jug Band Christmas poster, and next to it is my sister, because my sister and I used to watch it when we were little every year. We were like two Jews watching the greatest Christmas special of all time. And when we watched it, and I watch it now, Jim Henson is not Emmett Otter. Jim Henson actually plays I think it's Charlie. He plays the otter that basically does the kazoo. And when I was watching it recently, with my kids now I show it to, I was, now I'm just super attuned to who's doing what Muppet, because now that I've done the book, I'm obsessed. And you can see, I'm like, who does this? I started looking at, what are the best Muppet performers, and this total side character steals this song and this kazoo solo of all things, and it's just hysterically funny. And I'm like, I finally went on IMDb and looked it up, and I was like, oh, that's why, because that little side Muppet is Jim Henson. And even when it's not the big performance, you know he's the best at what there is. He's the Wolverine of the Muppets. He just has it, and and you could see it a mile away. It's all in the performance of it.
You know, this is really one of my favorite books because I really think it's as approachable as some of the subjects that you've had so far. It's probably one of the more approachable people, and I also think his own story of how he became more and more creative, and that it was a factor of a very loving and encouraging grandmother that kind of really sparked his imagination and stuff. I really think a lot of kids are going to be excited, and I bet we'll be diving into their parents' sock drawers and stuff, and starting their own little puppet shows.
Yeah, I mean, we already see like all these kids doing puppets, but I think for me, what hits me is exactly what you just said. It's this, his grandmother and grandfather play these huge roles in his life, and what happens is his grandma, Jim Henson's grandmother, is just super creative, and she's the one who can like sew out of an army blanket and would come over and do arts and crafts projects, and he would want to draw weird birds, and she would just encourage that. And his grandfather, he used to say, had a great sense of humor, but his sense of humor was never at anyone else's expense. Is that his grandfather just believed you should laugh with people, not at them. And when you look at the full creation of Kermit, that's where it comes from. And, his grandmother, he takes his mother's coat and uses the lessons his grandmother taught him about sewing, takes not joking, his mother's wool coat and cuts it apart, sews it back together, takes 2 ping pong balls for eyes, and that's how the world gets Kermit the Frog, and then gives it this personality that never laughs at anyone, that never makes fun of anyone, is always just at the center of the chaos, being the kind soul. And I was like, oh crap, that's his grandparents, like put together in a perfect little, metaphoric, amalgamation.
Sure.
And for me, it hits home because my grandfather was the one who I still credit as me being a storyteller. He used to tell me this same story about Batman. He used to tell me every time I was with him, he would say Batman and Robin. This is how the story went. He would say Batman and Robin are in the Batmobile, and they're on the edge of a cliff, and in front of them on the cliff, they're chasing a white van, and in the van is the Joker, the Penguin, the Riddler, and Catwoman. And then they would catch him, and I would say to him, tell it again. And he would say, Batman and Robin are in the Batman. He would tell me this story that had like 35 words in it over and over because I just love the story. And like that, that connection to your grandparents and giving you that thing, it affects me. It just gets in my DNA. And for me, when I was 5 years old, Jim Henson taught me that you could use your creativity to entertain people, but more important, to inspire them and to teach kindness and goodness. And I hope that here I am today, all those, 40 years later, using that same lesson Jim Henson taught me, just trying my best to use my creativity to put a little bit more goodness into the world.
Yeah, it's, it's an inspiring story. And then just, again, it's all these little things he did. I was an original Sesame Street kid. The show debuted like a month before my 5th birthday. So I really was, and my dad, to his credit, was like, you're going to watch this because it's going to teach you how to count. I mean, they really had it in the newspapers and everything. And in fact, there was even a newspaper supplement when Sesame Street was starting that would have, lessons that they were going to do on the TV show. So you could literally follow along. And it really taught me how to read. It was great. And I mean, honestly, I was reading 2 grades ahead of myself once I hit school up until 4th grade, where they had me with people, 2 years older than me. And it was because
And then what, you just bottomed down in 4th grade, that was it?
Exactly. Slid to the bottom.
Yeah, no, so I got to ask, so favorite Muppets?
Oh, of course, and I was going to get to that with you, absolutely. For me, it's New Zealand #1, because I love New Zealand and his boomerang fish.
Yay!
That hair and the way, it's great. How you doing? I love that voice. And then also Sam the Eagle, of course. And, very Nixonian. I mean, now he just comes off as a very, too dignified for his own good eagle and stuff. But literally, Sam was created during the Nixon administration, and he was very
Sam the Eagle is like the greatest Republican of all time as far as I'm concerned. Like, he's just I love him. I mean, he would have his own, he's like, Sam the Eagle is high on my list of underrated Muppets.
So who are yours?
Okay, so underrated. We're gonna do underrated, not because I've done the best, and I feel like let's not do that. So underrated. Okay, number 10. Again, I'm going to guess here a little bit. I'll mix a couple up. Number 10, I think I'll do like Dr. Teeth and Janice, because I just think like Dr. Teeth is awesome, but Janice is just like the coolest, funkiest, like, wow, man, I love her.
Yes, free spirit, absolutely.
Free spirit, yeah. She was like clearly like the only Muppet not wearing a bra ever. Number 9, I'd say Crazy Harry, likes to blow things up. That was like always fun to me as a kid. He just seemed like the dangerous Muppet. New Zealand, I'll go for 8. I maybe even put him higher, but like Boomerang Fish is the best, and it's just a good bit. 7, let's say Statler and Waldorf, although let's be honest, they could be on like a top list of the best Muppets ever, but they're they're still kind of underrated. 6, I still like Rolf, because he's like takes 2 pieces to do it. It's like because he's got 2 hands and a mouth, so it takes 2 people to actually operate him, and he is like the great bartender.
Yes.
5, let's see, 5, I'll say Snuffleupagus. I like Snuffleupagus. In fact, when we went to Sesame Street, one of my greatest moments of being there is there was one point where I had my hands in and was doing, I think it was like the trunk of Snuffleupagus, and my son was doing like the mouth, and I was doing the eyes, and it was just, we were together, my son and I, controlling Snuffleupagus. I was like, life doesn't get more crazy and rewarding than this exact moment with the real Snuffleupagus. I forget what number we're on now, but I'll say,
I think 5.
On 5 or something like that. So 4, I still love the Yip Yip Martians. I think they're the best. Yip, 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 yip. I just love them. They made me laugh when I was little. I remember being like wanting them physically to come on an episode of Sesame Street, like when are they coming back? I'll give you Sam the Eagle as 3 for sure. 2, Emmett Otter. And Emmett Otter could be my 1, but 1 is still, it's like truly like the most underrated comedy duo is Dr. Bunsen, Honeydew, and Beaker.
Sure.
I'll go for 1, although I could put the Emmett Otter there too. They're just good. So that's like a general list, but we all reveal ourselves when we reveal our favorite Muppets.
This is true. And also we had another conversation, and we were talking about how much we both loved the Ernie and Bert dynamic, and how they really are like the perfect odd couple. And that would be great to see. Is Bert and Ernie perform Neil Simon's Odd Couple? You leave little notes on my pillow.
So meta, yeah. The thing that's great about Bert and Ernie is that it's true. Like to me, the fun of the Justice League of the Avengers was that you took the best of the best and you brought them together. Like if you thought that Superman was great, combined Superman and Batman and Green Lantern and Flash, you thought the Avengers were great. Like here's Thor and Iron Man and Cap. Like and so the idea of bringing it together always had an appeal for me. What I love about Ernie and Bert is that it's Jim Henson and Frank Oz. They are the true titans. They are the Superman, Batman, the Cap, and Iron Man. They are like the cream of the crop, best performers, and they're pouring their souls into it, not for profit, but for like a decade into just nothing more than kids' public television.
Yep. And
man, they're just killing it on every episode. They're just so good together. The chemistry is so good, and it's so physically good that it reprises for Kermit and Miss Piggy as lovers. Like that chemistry can only come from these 2 performers who just understand each other in like some primordial way, and that only like a good marriage can maintain. That that I feel like it's like the Beatles. If they were puppeteers, like it's just something in the alchemy of their performances happens that alone they could never do by themselves.
I agree. Hey, what did you think of that ABC sitcom? Because, for me, there was a lot of really good moments in that show, and I'm really disappointed. I don't know if it was an expensive show to do, but I really felt that, just like every television show, sometimes you need more than a season to really gel. And granted, these characters all worked together in movies and television for years. So from that standpoint, there's one thing. But I really did feel like they were onto something and weren't given enough time to really make it happen.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I net out the other way, and I make it a rule never to kind of like badmouth anything. So I don't want to just badmouth it. I just think that for me, and I just don't ever buy the Kermit's not talking to Pig anymore. Like I understand, we all know in comics you don't want everything just always be good. You know, Bob Schreck,
Sure.
Once said to me that the job of writing comics is you got to make these characters everyone loves miserable. And the best stories come from making them miserable. And I was like, he's like, that's why people get mad at us. But the truth is the best stories come from when we make these characters we love miserable. But I feel like for the Muppets, I know that you have to have conflict. You must always have conflict. But I feel like I never bought the idea that, like, Kermit is estranged from anyone or that, like, there's a break. I don't know. It suddenly made their lives sucky like us to looking for something that, I always look for the Muppets as, like, whatever they have, they can be better and kinder and warmer than we are. And that was their lesson. And when they just, like, suffer like the rest of us, I don't know. To me, that's where the alchemy went wrong. And I feel like that's when the audience turned on the show because they were like, I'm not buying that. I don't believe that Kermit's going to be a dick to anybody.
Yeah, well, and, he was really just, mostly put upon. But no, I agree with you. I think breaking Miss Piggy and Kermit up was dumb. I remember saying, it's always Miss Piggy.
We were a formal guy. I also remember hearing Frank Oz and, talk about, it was, and I got to look it up because it's just, at this point, it just becomes pure gossip. But I feel like I remember reading something, I forget if it was for the movie or the show, of just Frank Oz being like, Jim Henson, he knows the core of the Muppets, right? He's part of that DNA as much as anybody was. And He just knew that, like, that's not what, there's, I always say that a really good character is one where when you put them in a situation, you know exactly what they're going to do, or you at the very least, know what they won't do. So if I say to you, and then Superman's going to be a dick, you're like, you just don't buy it. Or if you say, and then Cap is gonna lie to someone's face, just because he doesn't want to tell the truth, not for anyone's good, but because he's embarrassed. You just know that something feels wrong about that. The character is so well defined, that that's just not how they act. And when it's wrong, you smell it a mile away. And I feel like, I want to look it up now, but I feel like, Frank Oz just knew that that's just not what Kermit does. And that stuck with me. I couldn't shake that.
I understand. And really, for me on the show, it was the small moments that were the funniest moments. And like
you
one
like
time they
Dick
were
Muppets.
all.
That's what you like.
No. I was even going to say Dick Muppets. There was one where they were all at a bar hanging out, and the Swedish Chef just started singing "Rapper's Delight."
Now, yeah, listen,
Swedish accent.
I can always be down for that. Like that, you sold. But to me, the funny thing is I didn't realize when the Muppet Show went off, it was at the height of its popularity, and I love that. In a strange, odd way, the Muppet movie, the first one was gold, and even the remake, I thought the first one was really, really good.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work every time. It doesn't work as magically, and they have to have a mission that I feel like is more about them together. That's when the Muppets work best, and I think that's why the Muppet Show went off at the perfect time. Because I think if you start running into just like, okay, now let's make conflicts amongst themselves, again, it goes against what we were saying about the grandfather, right? Is like their sense of humor was never at each other's. I mean, obviously, you would make fun of Fuzzy Bear, and Statler and Waldorf were busting them all the time. But I remember when I got to interview Jim Henson's daughter, one of the questions that my friend Noah, who loves your show, had me ask, and I love this question, was, we all associate Jim Henson with Kermit. And the question I asked her was, are any of the other, as the daughter of Jim Henson, are there other Muppets that you can see as you guys, as your family members, as your brothers and sisters that, that we don't know about, but that you see so clearly? And, she paused on answering it and said, and this was her answer, which I thought was, mind-blowing to me, is she said she doesn't see a particular Muppet that's like, this is my brother or these are my sisters, but what she saw is that she saw that her family, and that when Jim Henson had young kids and younger kids in his house, that's when he did Sesame Street. And she's like, so that was all us. And then when he did the Muppet Show, we were all teenagers, and our house was chaos, and we had birds and cats and dogs and all these pets and all these teenagers running around the house. And I was like, and she was like, and that was the Muppet Show. It was just chaos, and all these animals and birds and monsters and freaky things. And And I was like, oh, so like you guys, the Muppets. She's like, yes, schmuck. Yes, Brad. Yes, we are. And I just loved that, you know, we all know that the best and most authentic story you can tell is your own story, and that Jim Henson was kind of doing that. And I think it's why when there's that internal conflict, it just goes against that Kermit, you know, that the center of it all, in the middle of that chaos, you know, the one lesson that Jim Henson taught in every episode of The Muppet Show and the best Muppet movies was that you can have all this chaos and you can have these, you know, these creatures and you can have, a comedian bear and you can have a diva pig and you can have whatever Gonzo is. But the way we sing best is when we all sing together. And that Kermit at the end always brings us together. And to me, that just has to be at the core of a successful Muppet project.
I'm with you, definitely. What have you announced what your next I Am book is going to be?
I forget what at this point, I forget what we've announced internally, and I think they announced it. So we're doing two that are, I mean, you know, again, we luck into the dumb timing of this. What happened is, you know, we picked these things like almost 2 years in advance. And so we're doing, the next one, we're doing two books again, like we did George Washington and Jane Goodall. We did them together in last September. So this coming September, although I think it'll be the first week of October because it's one of the characters, one of the heroes' birthdays, we're doing I Am Sacagawea and I Am Gandhi. And I just think on the Gandhi side, my God, that we as a country need some Gandhi lessons right now. And I was reading it with my son, and I had written the book, and Chris hadn't drawn it yet. And the election happened, and I wanted my son, you know, so many people were so angry about different things with the election, and I said to my son, you need to read this. And I made him read the script. He's never read anything that I've written in script form, but I was like, you know what, you need to read this. And as he was reading it, I was reading it. And as I was reading, I was like, my gosh, we all as a nation need this right now. Like, not my great writing, but Gandhi's teachings. And it was like in rereading the script that I was doing with Gandhi's work in it, it just made me find like what, you know, just the end of this us versus them mentality that we've been in. And again, you know, like Jim Henson, or, you know, only, you know, maybe I'll wager on the first person to link Jim Henson and Gandhi, but really we sing best when we sing together. And boy, do we need that.
I agree with you. Absolutely, man. With the very last couple minutes here, I'm interested because a couple new superhero-based TV shows have kind of debuted, and I'm wondering if you had a chance to see either Legion or Powerless.
Legion I can't wait for. I actually blurbed Noah Hawley's book, who's the showrunner on Legion, and so I got to blurb his thriller, which I really, really liked. And I never do blurbs for thrillers because I just never do, but I did that one. So I have them taped. I haven't watched. What was the other one you said after Legion?
Powerless, the DC comedy?
No, I haven't seen that. I mean, there were,
Okay.
No, not for, I mean, what do I even watch? We watched it, you know, my son loves The Flash and loves, and loves Legends. I mean, you know, Mark Guggenheim is a dear friend. I went to dinner. It was really great. When we did the I Am Jim Henson book event, I went out afterwards for dinner, and it was myself and Dan DiDio, and then I went out with Mark Guggenheim, who runs Legends and Arrow, and Michael Green, who is working on American Gods, and also one of the screenwriters of Logan and a Blade Runner. And it's not just a name drop bomb that I'm dropping here. The reason I tell you this is that Michael and Mark, myself, Wendy Miracle, who is also the co-showrunner on Arrow, we were all on Jack and Bobby together with Greg Berlanti, who obviously does all the shows. And we were sitting there and we were like, we didn't realize it at the time, but Jack and Bobby was the nerdiest comic book writer's room that ever existed in the history of Hollywood. But like, you know, if you look at who was in that room, you know, Steve Cohen went to do BoJack Horseman. Eric Olson went to do Man in the High Castle. It was, you know, it was bananas when we looked at it that, you know, we could trace so much of the Hollywood stuff to like writers that were in that room. And I remember I was working on Identity Crisis when I was in Jack and Bobby, and everyone kept coming to me and the writers and saying, hey man, you know, I'd love to do some comics, and I would make introductions to anyone who wanted. But I just love that how many people in that room on a show about politics, of all things, are now working, entertaining, and doing superheroes.
That's fantastic, man. Is Jack and Bobby streaming anywhere? Because I always love going back and watching some of these shows that really don't get beyond a first season, sometimes only even half a season.
Yeah, no. I mean, we were on Entertainment Weekly put us on their list of like the top 11 best canceled shows in history, and we were on that list. And I was like, I don't know if you want to be on that list or not. Like, it's, you know, like, and let's be realistic. I mean, you get extra love because you're canceled. Like, if we went 5 seasons, we wouldn't get near as much love as we did when we were like, you know, abruptly pulled after 22 episodes. I know it was on Netflix for a bit, and then I forget it wasn't on there. Someone told me it's on YouTube now. I gotta find out. I still don't know why they didn't do like streaming or DVDs of it, but hopefully one day. I mean, I think someone uploaded them all to YouTube at some point. But boy, would that show have I mean, I remember sitting in that room and just talking comics. Like here we were writing this political show, but we were just talking comics and more comics. And I remember, in fact, in the same office that Jack and Bobby was, in the same building, downstairs from us was Smallville. And so Michael Green and I used to go and sneak downstairs and hang out with Jeff Loeb, who was at that point, you know, on Smallville. And he was like the wise old man who would tell us like all the horror stories of how the comic industry was. And, you know, and then Jeff, and then we'd go back with Jeff and hang out with Jeff Johns and Alan Heinberg, because Jeff Loeb and Jeff Johns used to have a little studio together. And, you know, all of us were just kids at that point. We were in our early 20s, just excited to be playing in this universe. But, you know, it's amazing to me how many of them have, in a strange way, like left comics behind, as many of them worked in comics and are really bringing it to that movie theater and that TV show. I just, you know, it makes my nerd heart proud. And they don't,
now, there was a time
at the time, comics were not nearly as cool. Like, you know, it was like still that secret thing that you talked about, but we were like, you know, the comic people, we can all find each other really quickly.
Now, I got to ask, because there was a time that it was almost one after the other. You would concentrate on a book and then do a new comic book project. Are there any comic book projects in the near future, or where are you right now in the world of comics,
you know,
beyond being a reader?
Yeah, no, and we should talk about some comics that we're reading, because I love plugging people's stuff. But you know, I would love to do it. Obviously, Dan DiDio is still one of my nearest and dearest. And, you know, Joe Quesada has been one of the nicest people in the world, and Tom Brevoort. And I love these guys. And Brian Bendis. I mean, these are my friends who I love. And I would kill to do something. It's just the reality is doing the I Am and the kids book series is really what took my comic book time. And the time that I would do a 6-issue run of a comic book series is basically what I do to do these books. And so that's what's suffered. I will say, though, that there is a comic book project that I am working on. It's not a DC or Marvel one, but we are going to do one, because I just think there's one that I just really one-off that I really want to do. And so I'm going to, totally opposite of what you're thinking. It's not a superhero thing at all, but something that I do want to work on, and that should hopefully be coming out next year.
That's cool. Creator owned, or somebody else's character?
Owned by the universe, let's just say that. And
okay,
but that's an important, you know, I just was like, you know what, I can do this, we can pull it off, and have just had the help of a lot of amazing comic creators to help me pull it off. So I've been slowly pulling that together over the last couple months.
That's awesome, man. Very, very good. Well, you know, the I Am series has distinguished itself, and I'm very glad that so many people have jumped on the bandwagon for you and Chris, because you're doing a lot of fun stuff, and I'm a big biography fan. I mean, that's what I devoured when I was a little kid, and I still do it, in fact. And I really do think it's storytelling at the end of the day, but it really does, I think, help promote better reading skills from kids. And the way you guys are doing it, I think, is the right combination of pictures and words that will ignite these, you know, small minds and make them read more. So you're doing a good job.
No, and listen, I appreciate it, but you know what? I mean, it's like I wish we could take credit for it. All we're doing is channeling these amazing people. Chris is doing the heavy lifting. He has to make it look amazing, which he does. But you know, when we went back to do Jim Henson, I was actually nervous, because I was like, it's nostalgia, right? That's all it is. It's me going and saying, I love the Muppets, I love Ernie and Bert, I love Kermit and Miss Piggy and everyone, and I'm going to just do nostalgia. And we all know also that nostalgia is a total trap. Like, just because it was old doesn't mean it's good. But it wasn't until I got back into like, okay, what makes this thing tick, that I was like completely happily relieved to see that the core of it is not a funny voice or a cute song or, Jim Henson being able to even a great puppeteer. It's the soul of the message itself. It's that belief that being good and being kind and creating and believing and pretending are lessons we should never, ever outgrow. And if comics taught me anything, it's I will never apologize for being a do-gooder.
Attaboy. Very cool, man. Well, I know you got to get going. Let's
wait, you want to do it? We always end with a quick run of what comics we're reading.
Talk to me. Oh, okay, good. If you got a couple more minutes, sure.
Let's do a couple minutes. I love promoting anything that's. I'm trying to think. What are we reading? So tell me what you're reading this. I'll tell you. I've been. I know I've said it a million times, but I'll say it 1,000,001. I still think that the best book of last year was Vision by Tom King. I still love that book.
Hear.
And I'm just glad it's out in trade and people are enjoying it.
He's doing an amazing job on Batman too.
Really
I'm not kidding.
Batman. I love. Yeah, I'm a fan. I love his stuff.
And being a DC, honestly, you've done, I know, DC and Marvel stuff, but really, I always think of you more as a DC guy because of Identity Crisis and Rebirth. Jeff's a good friend of yours and everything. What do you think of Rebirth so far?
Oh,
the DC.
I love. Listen, Jeff is one of my dearest friends, and just on this planet when it comes to, especially in this industry, for liking the same kinds of comics. And so I love that his thing of Rebirth. I thought was spectacular. I loved because it was all emotion, right? It wasn't about punching villains in the face. Like, it was getting to the core of these characters and their interaction. To me, the best parts of comics, Marvel or DC, is that they have they have history together. And when you have history, as with any old friendship, it's complicated. It's not just, we're friends and let's go, or we're enemies and let's fight. Like, it's complicated. And when you can have 60, 75 years of a character, in the right hands, it's the most rich, perfectly defined. I always maintain Batman is the best defined character in all of literature. You can take any situation and put Batman in it, and you may argue what he's going to do or won't do, but no one will argue what he wouldn't do. Everyone knows if I said, and then Batman sings, everyone's like, no, he doesn't. And he's just by hundreds of hands touching him, as on the writer and the artist front, he's just been honed into this perfect character. And so watching Tom King still find something new to pull out of him, and especially the villains, and same thing with Vision. Like, how many Vision stories have we read, and how many robot stories have we seen? But to watch him pull a new thread of his soul out, and make him terrifying, and that sense of the Hitchcock quote, it's not the bang that's scary, it's the anticipation of it. My God, I felt like from page one, I was terrified for when everything was going to go to crap. In terms of
it felt like it. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
In terms of, I was going to say, it reminded me of like really good Ray Bradbury, really good Outer Limits or Twilight Zones. In terms of suddenly, how often Ex Machina is the only other dangerous robot story I can think of recently that really did have something new to say and made me uneasy.
Oh, you got to read. You should read Pluto, the manga Pluto, Pluto. And I'll mispronounce the guy's name, but just put in Pluto, like Mickey Mouse's dog, and manga, and that's the best book you're going to read this year. I'm not a manga person. I tend, because I just don't like the gratuitous panty shots, and not for me. But this is about, they say, I think it's the 7 most deadly robots in the world, 9 most deadly robots in the world, and they're slowly being murdered. And it's a murder mystery as they try to figure it out. And it's the best robot story, beside Hilo, that I've read. It's so good.
This is true, and I forget that Hilo is a robot story.
Yep.
And Judd is doing a great job. Volume 3 just came out of Hilo. We've talked about the first 2 books. There's another good example of a good kids book series, and he brings his comic book art sensibility to the book.
Yeah.
And some of those action shots in Hilo, I think, are so great.
Yeah, no,
and I think, again, if you're a little kid, it's really exciting.
But the best thing about Hilo is it has a soul, right? The best part of the character moments.
Sure.
When you find out, that DJ is like, all of his relatives are good at something, he's the kid who's good at nothing. He's just the average. And you're just like, God, I know everything that character wants right now. And Judd did it in one panel. It was artful.
That's true.
What else am I reading? I'm enjoying the Fix. I just like that. It just feels like, just a great little indie, amazing, just, it's like part caper pick, but part, kind of, just great character bits. I really like. I love Southern Bastards. I just love that book. I think Jason Aaron is killing it. I love that he can write like.
I like the Black Monday murders.
The what?
The Jonathan Hickman Black Monday murders. Jonathan Hickman.
Someone just told me about that. I haven't read it. I want to read it. I love Hickman stuff. I mean, the funny thing is, I just still love that that Jason Aaron can do like Southern Texas drawl and then do Thor. And like that is just the best.
Yep.
Like I'm jealous of that because you can do one. And one of those is a totally different voice than your normal English, and he's doing two, and that makes me just like, I'm just impressed. What else am I reading? I like, I love just seeing Frank Quitely draw the crap out of Jupiter's Legacy or Circle or whatever the new one is. I love seeing him back on that because I just think no one does that. I love what Brian's doing on Iron Man and on all the. I've always maintained I think Brian's best books are when he's doing a single character because I think he can just give it the full attention that a team book can never allow to a character. And so I think from Spider-Man to Iron Man to the Iron Doom or whatever the Doctor Doom Iron Man to. Like those books, Riri is just amazing. Like he's just getting character moment. Ben Grimm sitting with Maria Hill. I mean, those I'll pay money just for those panels. They're so good.
I'm with you. I love when Ben always faces Doctor Doom, and that he calls him Vic.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, because these are two guys that went to college together, and Ben was the jock and Vic was the little emo asshole.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, you don't impress me, Vic. I don't care how many worlds you conquer and how many cosmic powers you steal. You're still that jerk Vic from college that I've always hated. I think that's really cool. I
can read a new Marvel 2-in-1 that is nothing but Victor Von Doom and Ben Grimm going at each other. That's it. That's the only Marvel 2-in-1 there needs to be. Like the two of them are because they just stand for some. It's like a Joker Batman thing going. Like it's just it's all polish and science and knowledge versus everything that is unpolished and raw and beaten. Like they're perfect villains. They're everyone thinks that the perfect foil for Doom is Reed Richards. I think that Brian's figured it out. It's not. It's Ben Grimm. He's actually far more interesting against him. Watching Doom fight Reed Richards is it's just a mirror fight. It's just, and that's fine because one went good and one went bad, but they're two alike. That to me is like when Batman fights the Riddler. Like they can both be smart and they both use their brains, but to really be the best villain, you have to be total chaos to up Batman's order, and that's why the Joker is the better villain. And to me, I just love that Ben Grimm almost stands as a soul. As something that is opposite what Doom will stand for. All the regal, all the the hoity-toity stuff, all the polish, all the knowing Sir, Madam, knowing all that stuff. Ben Grimm can give a crap about.
It's always fun to discover someone that really captures a character's voice, and I think Bendis is a good match for Ben Grimm. I mean, Slott certainly proved it in his Thing solo series, so it's. We grew up with the Thing being an A-list character on his own.
Oh, that's a Marvel
like you said, Marvel 2-in-1s.
And Burns Fantastic Four. I mean,
yes.
And listen, love what Slott does, love what everyone does, but sometimes you just find that perfect story for that perfect character. And my God, is it to me Doom?
Yeah, I'm with you. No, very cool, man. Excellent. All right, well now I'll let you go because I think we're running against the clock. And I usually catch you in a car or something like that. Thank God it's not the bus because we'd hear the people hitting the ding button every time they need to stop or whatever. But exactly.
Now I want
there
to
you go,
do the
dude.
next one from
No,
the
pleasure.
bus.
You're welcome. Loeb and I always used to do our conversations in the car because he had a long commute to Marvel Studios where it was originally from where he lived. And so, yeah, usually I would have to catch him at like 10 in the morning as he's driving into work.
That sounds like Loeb. That's Loeb
just
screwing you over. Let me tell you, I'm going to leave you with this. This was Jeff Loeb's greatest advice to me when we sat in the Smallville writers' room. We went downstairs, and it was me and Michael Green and Jeff Loeb, and we were like the two, young kids looking to the old wise man advice. And I told him this story, how much it meant to me, and he said to me, "Here's the thing about Hollywood." He explained it. It was the old man having us on his knee, and Jeff Loeb said that there are 3 reasons you can take a job when you think about taking a new job. He's like, 1 is you love the job itself. 2 is you love who you're working with. And 3 is they're paying you a crap load of money. And 2 of those three things have to be true. And I remember sitting there at the time being like, wow, man, that is wise advice. And now I bust his balls and tell him, like, that was totally wrong. Like, it could only be the first two. It has to be the first two. Because if you're doing it for the third, you're going to hate it. And so I love,
what did he say?
So the third one is that you got to be paid a lot of money. And I just wouldn't,
Right. What did he say?
No, guys, Listen, we live to give each other crap. I mean, that's the fun. But I still maintain now, like when I was younger and we were trying to pay off loans, yes, the third one was true. But boy, the only way to get good work is if, one and two are the only two things that you should be getting on the job for.
Understood, man. Well, and again, I'm glad you are in a position that you can kind of call what you want to write about and stuff. Certainly you're doing it with these I Am books. And that's great, man. And I'm really glad the audience is responding. I Am Jim Henson out now. And look for I Am Sacagawea and I Am Gandhi come October from Chris Eliopoulus doing the drawing and Brad Meltzer doing the writing.
No, thank you. And thanks to all the people in our comic community who just support these books. They are the first ones who gave us our shot, and I love that they're helping we're helping them build a library of real heroes for their kids and their grandkids and their nieces and their nephews. That's just awesome.
I have the feeling that if Meltzer and I lived in the same town, he'd probably, call the cops and tell him to have this guy stop pestering me. Because I always enjoy talking to Brad. It's always too brief. But we always have fun, and glad to have him back. And I'm sure I'll find an excuse in the months ahead to welcome Brad back to a new word balloon. But I hope you enjoyed today's presentation today. It was brought to you by InStock Trades at InStockTrades.com. There are fantastic books waiting for you at great prices. Check out their website now, InStockTrades.com. Word Balloon was also brought to you by ECC Frames. This is a great company, and I am a customer that has enjoyed their work, and I would like to share that with you. If you've got comic books, trading cards, movie posters, gaming cartridges, record albums, action figures, models that you're proud of, any vintage collectible that you want to not only present, but really importantly protect with a nice durable frame or a nice durable cube, then ECC Frames are the people you're looking for. 40 years in the business. They know what they're doing. They have excellent product that they put into their frames and cubes, whether it's the fine, durable Italian wood, the UV-resistant acrylic, and the acid-free matte boards that they use. Do yourself a favor. Contact ECCFrames.com. They are the people to go to protect your collectible and also present it in a way that you'll be very proud and can show off, whether it's in your library or your geek cave, whatever you think of. So I was going to say man cave, but I know women have their destinations. I don't know if they want to call it a cave. See, even that is sexist. What's wrong with me? ECCFrames.com. If you go there and use the promo code WordBalloon, you'll get an additional savings on your frame or cube. That's ECCFrames.com. Use the promo code WordBalloon. Thanks again for listening today. I will be back in a couple days with another new episode. This weekend is FanX in Salt Lake City. I am so excited to be doing the spring show for Salt Lake City's Comic-Con called FanX. And, man, it's going to be great. I'm going to be talking to Marv Wolfman on a panel. Marty Pasco has a spotlight panel about the Batman animated series. I imagine with the release of the Judas Contract animated movie, Marv and I will be having a Titan Focus conversation. But, don't forget, if you're there and you go to these panels, please, any questions, any subject, I'm sure when it's Q&A time, the guys would be happy to talk to you about their triumphs in the comic and otherwise related material worlds, because both have great credits in animation and live television and a whole lot more. So this is going to be really fun for me. I'm on 3 additional panels as well, including one with my hero, Dr. Demento, the great novelty DJ who delighted me from my Mad Magazine reading years to today, and exposed me to a lot of great comedics, people that made amazing songs, including Weird Al Yankovic. Dr. Demento really discovered Weird Al, and I'm sure that'll be part of the presentation. So FanX, it's Salt Lake City. Can't wait to go. if all works out, I will have panels from Fanex as well to present here on future Word Balloon episodes. So thanks for listening today. Looking forward to talking to you in just another couple days. March, I know, got off to a rocky start, and it will seem like there are less episodes, but we will make up for it with the days that we have left. Until next time, Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2017.